Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law. I hope you are having a great day. We are live, and I'm going to be joined very shortly by a fellow attorney, New York resident. There he is. New York resident. I need to turn up.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me?
All right. How's it going, Nate?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can now.
All right.
Let's put you side by side so we can be like cool kids.
All right.
Sweet.
What's going
All right.
on?
We are live.
This light is too bright.
You're right over there, Nate?
Yes. Just getting myself together over here. What's going on? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Yes, I fixed the echo problem. Nate is from the great city of New York.
NYC all the way.
So nice, they named it twice.
But only Manhattan. If you live outside
only Manhattan. Well, that counts as thrice, I guess. Yeah. New York County and New York City and New York State. So there you got three time New York.
What's going on though? But how's everything been going for you today?
Well,
leave it, baby.
Yeah. You're gonna keep the logo. I guess I'm gonna keep the logo because I don't think I can remove the logo.
From StreamYards, yeah. Account. Hold on, my daughter is blasting my light now. I gotta go turn it down. Give me a second. I'm gonna be blinded.
That's all right.
All right. Okay, I'm back. I hope I didn't turn it down too long. All right, there we go.
So we're just going to talk about some couple stuff, and we're going to start probably talking a little bit about impeachments.
Yes. Les, we definitely got
everyone's favorite topic.
I watched Adam Schiff close today. He was trying to.
Yes.
He closed hard. It was a good close.
There's been a lot of talk on this subject, of course, and fellow attorney, all around great guy, Viva Fry, Montreal litigator, has gotten duped by one of his guests.
Oh no.
Who says some very impressive things, but doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not a cool kid with an internet lockout. He's an actual litigator. He thinks he knows what he's talking about, but he's wrong. Isn't that right, Nate?
I think he's wrong, but no, this is great guy. I just
also
think
he's not a cool kid.
I disagree with this guy for one point. And again, he is very eloquent in saying the point. I think the point is well taken, but I think the point is just legally wrong. So I don't know. I feel bad for even saying it because I disagree with what's his name, Dershowitz, because Dershowitz now says it has to be a crime to be impeachment before
that wasn't
a crime.
Yeah, Dershowitz, but he agreed with this guy. What's the guy on Viva's channel called?
Robert Barnes.
Yeah, that guy. So yeah, he's a smart guy. He's involved in the Covington kids case. He wasn't involved in that big one, the big settlement with Nick Salmon. He's involved in some of the other ancillary kids, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So he's involved in that.
Is he Salmon's lawyer? I think he is Salmon's attorney.
Is he?
I think that's Salmon's attorney.
Okay,
but they're also representing the kids too, from what I remember, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. So maybe he's Salmon's attorney too, but yeah. So anyways, the dispute for those of you who are interested in the impeachment stuff, let's just start with impeachment. So here is the argument from Viva Fry and this Barnes yesterday on Viva Fry's channel. So Barnes is arguing that the impeachment clause, which allows people to be impeached for treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors, is properly understood as referring not only to actual crimes, so they actually have to be crimes, but particularly heinous and horrible crimes that would cause problems to the nature of the republic itself. So it isn't enough in Barnes' view, for example, that Clinton was impeached over perjury because he said he didn't support the Clinton impeachment. He said during that stream that he was in law school at that time and he didn't support it because he didn't think that perjury, even if it can be considered a serious crime, is not one that goes to the heart of a threat to the nature of the republic. The only thing, his view is that the only things that can/should be impeachable are those crimes that would preclude people from voting them out of office. So his examples were things like, I'm going to sell out the United States so I can become the Duke of Normandy, because that sounds like an upgrade to me. You know? And things of that nature. So that was his argument. And then he was arguing that this was the best legal opinion. And then where I really got off the train in this argument, where I got off the train, I don't know where Nick got off the train, but where I got off the train on this argument was his suggestion that a court, including the Supreme Court, would do anything about it if they impeached / convicted for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
That's where I get off the train.
That's where you jumped off the train.
Yeah.
I was off the train at there needed to be a crime. And the reason why is because if you accept the fact that Congress has the power to impeach the president for whatever they want, then it doesn't have to be a crime. And even though he gives us this originalist argument, back in 1800s and back in the Constitutional Convention, they took out, a malfeasance of office or something like that, that limits it to crimes. I don't think so. I think maybe I think his understanding may be grounded in some textualist and some originalist viewpoints. But I think if you read the document as it is supposed to be understood, maybe in a more progressive light, then you don't have to come to that determination.
Yeah. So I think we've also both concluded that this falls into what we classically call a political question. And as I have many times on my channel attempted to explain to my fellow people who are viewing my content, we can view what government does into two massive categories: politics and law. And we split the political branches into two. That would be the executive and legislative. Those are both political branches, and they both do political stuff. So, what should we do? What should our policy be to XYZ? What should our policy be with respect to researching this disease, or, giving aid to the poor, or whatever, our concerns are in terms of policy? What should our policies be? That's what politicians do. They get to argue about it and argue about it and argue about it. Well, what the law branch does is hopefully not that. The law branch answers legal questions. What does this statute mean? What does this part of the Constitution mean? What does this word mean? Does that comma matter? These are like legal questions. And so what a court means by a political question is that it is a question, an issue that is dedicated to one of the other branches of government. Go ask someone else, not ours. Here's a circle. Here's a line through the circle. Go away. This is not our problem. If you think your taxes are too high, we're thrilled for you. As far as the court's concerned, you have to pay them. But if you want them to be lowered, go talk to the IRS or something. I don't know.
It's a political branch, but it's this. It all has to do with justiciability. If you were to bring a case to the court, to a district court, and it was found to be a political question, they would dismiss it on that basis that it's just not justiciable. So one of the things that falls within this body of law is impeachment. No?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think so, yes.
Yeah, so should we explain why impeachment is considered a political question?
I think anything with respect to impeachment is pretty much a political question, just full stop, because of the nature of it. The Constitution seems very clear on a text to me. The House is the sole body which can bring the impeachment, and the Senate is the sole body which tries and judges the impeachment. And I interpret the word "sole" to mean soul. So there is nowhere left to go. This is your court of first and last resort on this issue. There's nowhere left to appeal to. So as a court, I'm like, I don't want any piece of anything revolving around this.
And this was my disagreement with Barnes. Barnes doesn't understand the impeachment process and even the conclusion to be a political question. That's why when he says that if Trump is impeached for a poor reason, the courts can look at it and make a decision whether it was a justified impeachment, whether the House brought actual articles of impeachment that fit the definition of high crimes and misdemeanors. but that's incorrect because the doctrine of political question doesn't allow that to happen. The House is the one who determines what impeachment is, the process, and what they can impeach for. So under this doctrine, technically the House can impeach for anything because they determine what high crimes and misdemeanors are. They have the sole power to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. And I was just pulling up while you were saying that. I was going to tell people about the Nixon case.
Oh, yeah.
It had some of this wonderful language of it. So I was just going to pull, and I think I can share a desktop at the same time.
Yes.
So let's figure out how I can actually do this. Share screen. Well, whatever. Share screen. I want to share an application window. I want to share this. I want to share this. Great. So now we have the case of Nixon v. United States. Now this is the case of Judge Nixon, not President Nixon. Judge Nixon. There are two different. The U.S. v. Nixon is President Nixon. Nixon v. U.S. is Judge Nixon. So this is a 1993 case dealing with impeachment on for whether or not Judge Nixon could be thrown out of the bench. And there's some language here that I think is particularly helpful. And I will just go right to this. This first part is from the syllabus. This is not part of the opinion, but this is prepared by the staff of the court in order to provide a quick summary of the case. And there's a good line in here. I'll just highlight it right here from the summary. And I'll read it for those of you who might not be able to see it. It says, a controversy is non-justiciable when there is a textual demonstrable constitutional commitment of the issue to a coordinate political department or a lack of judicially discoverable and manageable standards for resolving it. Basically, that's saying there are other branches of government. They are equal to us. That is concordant. And if something's demonstrated to one of them, it's not our ball. So go talk to the people whose ball it is.
There's also another quote in that case about where because Rehnquist wrote that opinion, right? Do you have the opinion up?
This is Rehnquist's opinion. You know, I have it on screen. I don't know if you can see it, Nate, but yeah, I have it on screen. I was sharing it and reading it. Nixon v. US. Can you see this?
Nah, it's too small for me, but it's all right though. Because I'm trying to see if I can find it myself. Nah, the text is too small. I'm reading like it looks like ants
maybe
on
I
the
can
page.
make it a little bigger. Hold on.
Oh, cool.
How's that?
Yeah, that's good. Scroll down a little bit. I'm looking for the part where he explains how Control F Constitutional Convention or Control F Convention.
And what do you want me to look for?
No, hold the Control key down, press F, and then you're looking for the word convention. It'll take you right to the part that I'm looking for. Is that it?
That it, or
it's about impeachment. I think this is the part.
So he sought judgment that his impeachment conviction was void.
No, there's another one where it says convention, not conviction, convention.
Oh,
because he's talking about convention, like constitutional convention.
Convention.
Yeah, like constitutional convention. Because that's exactly what he was talking about. All right, that's it. Read that line. Start with the history of the Constitution. I can't read it all. It's like,
you want me to read this paragraph?
No, just the line. That's that line with convention, where it says history. That's just that line. You can stop at the site.
The history and contemporary understandings of the impeachment provisions support our readings of the constitutional language. The parties do not offer evidence of a single word in the history of the Constitutional Convention or in contemporary commentary that even alludes to the possibility of judicial review in the context of impeachment powers.
I think that sounds pretty clear to me, no?
Sounds pretty clear to me. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
So
there's nowhere left to go. It's like, it's just, it's not, it is, as I've said many times on this channel, it is a political question. It is a political process. It is political in nature. Everything about it is political. The consequences are only political because, lest we forget, all the Senate can do at the end of the day, and not that it's meaningless, but it is a finite list. All they can do is kick you out of office and prevent you from ever having a federal job ever again. That is the total extent of their power when it comes to this issue. So those are political consequences, and the remedies for displeasure with the outcome are also political, namely voting the people who voted for such a thing out of office. You know, if you were displeased with the judgment of the Congress and all this. Now, the argument from our contemporary on Viva channel was that this was a problem because if it could be read this far, then it would mean that political leaders in the executive branch would be serving at the pleasure of the judiciary, and I suppose that matter, for that matter, members of the judicial branch as well, because they can be impeached, as Mr. Nixon was impeached from the judicial branch as well. So you can only serve at the pleasure of the Senate. Well, a couple things make that a little bit difficult. First of all, that you have to get at least half of them in the House to start, and you need 2/3 in the Senate. And everyone in Congress understands, or at least should understand, that everything comes back and bites you. You know, nothing stays just one time forever. You know, once you set the precedent, it kind of stays forever. And the thing that reminds me, you know, most notably of this was the discussions when the Senate was considering getting rid of the filibuster for judicial nominees not on the Supreme Court. So this was back when the Democrats had control of the Senate, and Obama was still in office, and Obama had made many nominees to lower positions of the federal courts. You know, there wasn't a position in the Supreme Court, of course, at that time. The death of Scalia wouldn't come till later, but so there wasn't an opening at the time. But they were just not taking them up. They were basically filibustering they're filibustering all of Obama's nominees. And so what the Democrats did is they took away the filibuster for all the judicial nominations other than the Supreme Court. Yes. And the Republicans at the time, and the one that comes most notably to mind is Ted Cruz.
Yes.
Because I can remember his voice in the Senate. And I'm going to paraphrase what Cruz said. But he basically said, there will come a day, not too many years from now, when you'll look back on this and you'll regret it, because you'll have started us down the path. And sure enough, what was it, like 4 years later, the Republicans are in control, and Trump has taken office, and he says, well, let's get rid of the filibuster for the Supreme Court nominees. And the Democrats said, well, you can't do that. It's like, well, it was your idea. It was your idea. Let's do it for everyone except the Supreme Court. But last I checked, Nate, the nomination process for Supreme Court and the other courts was exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
So I don't, you know, if you're going to say, why is the Supreme Court special in this respect? You know, it's like, I don't get nothing. Now, personally, I don't know where you stand on this. Mm-hmm. Personally, I don't think there should be a filibuster at all, period.
Yeah. I don't know. For the Senate, it all depends on for what. Because I think for the House, the way it works is just, you know, majority rule because you get so many members. But the Senate, they kind of want a little bit more, what's it called? A little bit more understanding. You know, it was made to be slow and an arduous process. It was designed to be more, you know, I don't want to say political, but more thought out in nature, you know, more regal, that type of thing. So 60% just was trying to get more consensus from the body.
Yeah, I don't necessarily object to putting in procedural differences between the House and Senate in terms of speed and stuff. So you could do things differently in the House and Senate in that respect. I think would be fine. So if your concern is in the Senate, well, we just want to slow things down and be the cooling saucer, which according to Leonard French, apparently this is a thing that in 18th century America, apparently. You ever hear that about how the Senate is the cooling saucer of democracy? Well, apparently what they used to do is pour coffee into the saucer and drink it out of the saucer, which sounds insane to me.
That does sound insane.
Because the saucer, the flat plate thing, obviously has a lot more surface area, and so therefore the heat would get rid of faster, and so therefore cool more. So they drink it out of the saucer. Okay, great. Anyways, So that the cooling saucer. So if you want to like add in more steps or more process or put in more periods of longer debate, I'm interested in that. But the idea that if my party takes the Senate or your party takes the Senate, it's like we kind of want them to execute against our vision,
Mhm.
and it doesn't seem good that not having a majority rule does seem problematic in a representative democracy.
That's true. Now, what do you think about that question too? About this actually being a democracy? Because there was a article I was reading from I forget this. It's just a Puerto Rican. It's a lawyer from Puerto Rico. She taught at NYU, and she made the argument that the United States is not. It's a republic, but it's far from a democracy. And the argument was that for just the key fundamental principle in any democracy is the right to vote for citizens. And since U.S. citizens don't actually have that as a fundamental right, she cited Scalia and Bush v. Gore, and the fact that Puerto Ricans who are full U.S. citizens and people who are on U.S. territories don't have the right to vote. So she said that the United States isn't actually a democracy, but it's a republic, but it's not a democracy.
No, I think that's right. I mean, democracy comes in many different forms, and ours is more representative. California is probably, well, it's not, I'm sure, the only example, but it's more infamous because of its direct voter initiative stuff that allows people to put things directly onto the Constitution by just a voter initiative, which has been criticized by those who are not Californians for being way too chaotic.
Was it Prop 8? That was the one that everybody thought was in the past, but then died horribly when it went to the people, and then it became
the people may not necessarily. The idea of them voting for people who then are in a position to become more well informed, it like makes sense to me. Like, I if you want to, it's just not possible or practical for everyone to be informed about everything. There's just too much stuff that's going on. And, to have people who live and breathe it, who that's their full-time job, and, sit on different committees and they hear all the different issues and hear all the different testimony, and they can talk to their colleagues who are likewise situated. It's like, well, they're more well-informed. Doesn't mean they can't make mistakes, but, it does mean that hopefully they're making decisions with a little bit more knowledge than you or I. But then, nevertheless, we can vote them out of office because, like, well, if we don't like what they're doing, we'll try someone else. But
that's true. That's true. And I think we do have the full democracy when you talk about the state level, even voting for like your senator or whatever. So I thought that's where the argument failed, because I think her argument really hinged on the, like, for instance, presidential nominations and federal nominations, in the sense of like you can't vote for president if you're in Puerto Rico, but if you come to the U.S. homeland. And I think the other thing was that actually you're not even voting for president; you're voting for an elector who can vote for whoever they want. So your vote in all instance for the electors doesn't even count, because the elector can vote whichever way.
Well, there's actually a case
like
on
poll,
the U.S. Supreme Court this term that's on that issue, on the elector issue, whether or not a state can force a elector to vote for the presidential candidate the state would want by some post vote criminal penalty. So I don't know what state it is, nor that's particularly relevant at the moment. But an elector didn't vote, for the person that the voters did. They voted for someone else, and they want to punish this person. I think it's a relatively minor penalty, because they're usually written relatively minor. It's usually like 30-day misdemeanor, which I don't know, like, where they come up with these numbers. Like, in the grand scheme of like things, it's
vote
like
for the wrong person, you get 30 days
more time than 30 days. But okay,
but
so there's an issue right now as to whether or not a state can force an elector to vote the way the state wants. Now, it's obviously an argument before the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm taking the position right now that the answer to the question is yes. The way I read the Constitution is the states have the right to choose how their electors get established, and that they are state agents, and they can have any rule they want. They can say, make up your own mind, or do what we say, or we'll give you 30 years in jail, or whatever. I think the idea that they are states officers for a day for one purpose, I mean, to the idea that you're a state officer because you're the governor, or you're a state officer because you're for one day, for half a day, you're doing one thing. I mean, you're a state officer either way, right? Now,
That's true.
yeah, potentially. The counter argument is that they're actually federal officers because they have a federal duty. Personally, I'm not buying this, but that's the counter. So we'll see what the Supreme Court has to say. It should be fun.
I don't know. That's going to be an interesting case because it almost like a very emotional North Korean argument. Vote for who I tell you to vote for, or spend 30 days in jail. You know what I'm saying? It's that like if you're an elector and you're supposed to have a choice because it's supposed to be a vote, then by taking away that choice, are you really an elector? What's the point of even having an elector then? If they can't go vote? And wasn't the whole purpose of the body was that because when you go back to the Constitutional Convention, the reason why we have the Electoral College is because they were afraid that the people would pick the wrong guy. So they wanted to have like this stopgap, which the electors, these, more privileged and more learned people, to be able to actually make the decision. And there's been a few times with the Electoral College, and even like an elector, like I think the last time was versus Bush v. Gore, where the elector from Washington, D.C. didn't choose didn't vote for Al Gore because she wanted to make a point that that Washington, D.C. was underrepresented. So she didn't vote for who the people voted for. So right. and that was the first time people actually thought, like, hold on, these people don't have to vote for who actually wins the election. So I don't know. Could you compel if your constitutional duty is to vote in an election, no matter what the people voted, then can they force me to vote one way or the other? Because I don't know. That just something seems just wrong about that,
Well, the question,
my job
question for me is whose vote is it really? If the question is it your vote or the state's vote? If what you're doing is a ministerial act, then it's not your vote to start with. It's not your speech. You're just the one that's being asked to do this, in the same way that the Kim Davis of county clerk of whatever fame, who refused to issue those marriage licenses, right? It's like, well, you're a state agent. You are an agent for the state. This is not a reflection on your wishes, nor do we want to be so. This is a ministerial act. The state wants you to do it. You're an agent of the state. Go forth and do it. And if you don't, we're going to whack you over the head. And she got whacked over the head. So I think your understanding of the early history of the Constitution is exactly right. I think there's much language, including in the Federalist Papers, about the idea that these people would be able to act autonomously and be able to exercise their own discretion. So I think that this is permissible. I just don't think that it's constitutionally required. I think the way the Constitution seems to phrase it is that it is up to the state to choose their electors. The way I read it, like, voting itself is not required. I mean, we can't discriminate on the basis of race and sex and age and a whole bunch of other stuff on voting. But if we just say no one gets to vote, and the state legislature is just going to, amongst themselves, decide who the president's going to be, the way I read the Constitution is like, well, the state decide, let's not do it by election. Let's do it by us doing it in state legislature because we are the smartest. I don't know how well that would go over with the people of that state, but I think it's constitutionally allowed. And, so I just like, well, you whatever the rule is, the rule is we're going to come. The rule is you make up your own mind. The rule is follow the will of the voters. The rule is in the idea of the interstate compact that's being floated around as an idea. Yeah. A lot of states, they're trying to get together in this national state voting compact.
Whoever wins the popular vote wins
enough
everything.
States in it that no matter what the state votes for, that they'll vote for the national winner. So hypothetically speaking, if this works and it gets into place, then if a Republican wins the national vote, then California would, even though its citizens are going to vote Democratic, it's 50 whatever electoral votes are actually going to go to the Republican, which I'm sure when that happens is going to super thrill.
But don't forget that
state.
That's only but that's because it's supposed to be the stopgap against the Electoral College. Yeah. And one thing I thought was interesting is that they haven't put it in place until they actually get enough where it actually triggers. In other words, that's the reason why it's not in effect yet. They have a whole bunch of states, but just not enough where whoever gets the popular vote then wins automatically because they have enough states to tip it over the top.
Eladian said, didn't that get resolved by whatever ruling it was that forced the Senate to be elected by the people too? Well, that would be the 17th Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah.
So that was a
Before
constitutional
then.
amendment that did that one. So not so much a ruling as let's change the Constitution. So no, I don't think it resolved the issue.
Ah.
Yeah.
So what have you thought about the impeachment process so far? Well, first, do you think Trump should have been impeached?
That's a tough question for me on a lot of different levels.
Mm.
That is it. On what level are you asking me? Because it's like there's pragmatic considerations, there's political considerations, there's ethics considerations, all kinds of considerations that are coming to this. I mean, I'm biased, right? I'm a conservative Republican. I'm not a huge fan of Trump, but by the same token, he's governed a lot more conservatively than I would have anticipated. He used to be Democrat. I was worried about him. His judicial nominees have been to my liking. I'm not sure about your liking.
Yeah, they've been
but you know, I've been pleased with that, and now a quarter of the bench has been appointed by Trump, so that's, you know, a lot there. I think he's for the most part done pretty well on foreign policy. The economy is booming. I mean, the unemployment rates for everyone is never been better. I think black unemployment all-time low. I think women now have a majority of the workforce. It's like it just seems like everyone's better off. Trump's rhetoric gets to me though. It's not the way I would advance a lot of these ideas. You know, I'd like to think that I could put them together in a lucid argument that would actually have, you know, structure and paragraphs and like a train of thought, and Trump doesn't do that. So you know, I don't think he's an evil monster. So I guess no is my overall conclusion. I didn't vote for him the first time. I voted third party. I'll probably vote for him for re-election. So I guess the answer has to be no. So there's that.
Well, it's interesting. Back in when Clinton was being impeached, I was like, you know, being in New York, everybody's Democrat, and I was one of the few people who said no, he should be impeached. You know, this guy did something wrong. He definitely. I agreed with the Clinton impeachment for all the way through. He lied under oath. It's clear he did it. He should be gone. And I will say this: I've heard the same arguments on both sides, and when it was when I spoke to a Republican friend of mine back then, they would just go straight to the argument. Well, this is the reason why I think he should be impeached. And when I speak to a Democrat back then, it was always this long history of how good things were, you know, how great the economy was. Because remember, the economy was booming back then. You know how he governed well. You know, it was a whole bunch of excuses on, you know, their personal thing. Like, you know, this guy is doing us well, so we can look past it. And now I just feel with Trump, it's the reverse. Now if I ask the Democrat why should Trump be impeached, they're just going to give me the, you know, this, and then the conservatives usually give me the how great the economy is. Everybody's giving the facts that I think help their understanding or to their leaning. You know, in both cases, because I think both of them should have been impeached. I think Trump should be impeached, and I thought Clinton should be impeached. Do I think what Trump did or the process or, you know, the arguments that are being made are easy to make? I think no, but I think at the basic level, I always think of it this way. If Obama had refused to have told his people do not comply with any congressional subpoenas, I would have been saying I think Obama should be impeached for that. Easily. He should be impeached. He needs to give them what they asked for. Their Congress, he should give them their subpoenas. And that's just for that. Now we're talking about if we just technically add on, I think the other stuff, the quid pro quo that's not a quid pro quo, and they've just not really said it's a quid pro quo. All that other stuff, it's whatever. But it's just sometimes I think, you know, maybe I'm just too biased to hold these people to a certain type of standard, but it's just that when is enough going to be enough? Because I think it seems like it's getting worse. It seems like we're just allowing more. I still can't believe we allowed Clinton, and to see Schumer now be on a high and mighty when he was up there. You know, he was the one saying. I remember because I thought it was funny. He was the one they were asking if he's going to be a fair juror. No, of course not. You know, people call me every day. They're going to lobby me to vote for Clinton. Well, this is not a jury. And to hear that same man say the exact opposite now.
Yeah.
It just really tells you, I sometimes I think we're so protective of when we have the power or for
Yeah.
our little
Yeah.
thing that we're afraid to say, listen, we
No,
may
I
have to give
look.
it up for a higher cause.
I try to be honest about myself, and I try to be as honest as I can be because it
Mhm.
just saves time. And like, were this a Democrat who was governing in a democratic way and behaving like this, would I want them impeached? I mean, it's hard for me to say, oh, of course not. I wouldn't want that Democrat to be impeached. It's like, so I can't filter out my own bias on this.
Mhm.
I'm pleased with what he's doing. Um, and so maybe that means I'm looking the other way, or maybe it just means that if it were a Democrat, I'm holding them to such a higher standard because I wouldn't like what they're doing in the first instance.
Yeah.
But yeah, this may be an issue where, unlike our friend Barnes, who was insisting that were the shoe on the other foot, he would definitely come out the same way. I'm willing to admit that I may not be sufficiently pure to be that neutral, and I may be biased on this one.
No, well, don't get me wrong. I think my thing with Clinton and my thing with Trump is just because being the law enforcement background and just be like, you broke the law, you broke the law. Let's just cut all the bullshit out. That type of thing. Because I do admit, like for things with Trump, I'm a little bit more hypersensitive with Trump than I was with Obama, and I was a little bit more hypersensitive with Bush. Now I look back at Bush and I'm like, damn, this guy's a fucking saint. I wish I could give the guy a fucking hug now. Basic Trump, and I think it's usually you're colored by the other side, and at a point, I think both sides do it. You're so desperate to just prove the other side wrong that
Yeah.
at a point, you lose yourself. It's like, so what? Like when Trump got elected,
Well,
people
there is a lot of
devastated in
that,
New
and I
York.
I think a lot of that. I don't know that the Democrats necessarily could have played it differently, but there is a little bit of boy who cried wolf problem here because
Yeah, that's true.
Trump and his allies are absolutely right about one thing, and that is that the Democrats, or at least people prominent in the Democrat Party, let's say, have been talking about impeaching Trump since the day he was elected,
Day one.
and probably before that, when he was just running very well. I mean, there's quotes you can find from people saying, "Let's impeach him all the way back," and there was, I forget whose testimony it was, but basically saying, well, you tried one thing, you tried the other thing. It was this thing, it was Russia, it was the Mueller report, it was this
Mhm.
report, it was that report. And now it's just like one thing after another. It's like, but you've been trying to find something that's going to stick and it won't. And like I was saying this before, and I stand by this opinion. Like if Trump gets reelected, I think that Trump is going to get impeached again. I really do. In my heart of hearts, I
Mm.
really think he's going to get impeached again, and probably twice. I just think it's like, and then it just becomes, the talking point becomes the same thing, and like it becomes so much harder the next time, Nate, as I'm sure you can appreciate,
Mhm.
because like even if you could like find like rock solid evidence of bribery, of something like really extreme, I mean, it just becomes so much harder to distance it from like, well, it's just another go on the go around. It's not really important because you said the time he stubbed his toe was a high crime misdemeanor. Now you're saying bribery is a high crime misdemeanor. What a funny coincidence,
But
So it makes it so much easier to dismiss it.
all right, let me challenge your first point. Your first point
Okay.
was that at the beginning, people were saying that they would, day one, and I'm like, all right, day one, the Trump should be impeached. And now come to fruition. But then with Obama, soon as the first midterm election,
Uh-huh.
2010, right after the first, they started trying. That's when the I think that year, the Republicans start asking for articles of impeachment. Oh, he did this, impeachment, extremely early into his presidency, and this was after they took control of the House. And I think they had like 9 or 10 different times that they were thinking about impeaching him, and people were raising it. You can't, just because there's some Democrats who just hate the guy so much, and they've thought about impeaching him. I don't think it's really, you know, I don't think it's really that we should all they all were just out to impeach him because a couple of nuts, they're like the Republicans have had some nuts too say some crazy things about Obama. There was one, the
Well,
guy in
that's
Texas,
fair. That's fair.
remember, he was like, let's keep him out of the UN. So I don't know. I think I really do think when it comes down to it, if we just fair with the facts, even on both sides, then it's not as bad as people think it is, and it's not as great as people think it is. It's somewhere in the middle, and we just got to find that common ground.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to point to what the Republicans did, and with respect to Obama, there were definitely a couple incidents where the Republicans got really, really irritated with Obama and the administration. Fast and Furious scandal would be one.
Benghazi,
where they have Benghazi would be another, but that was more about Clinton than Obama as such. But yeah, that was more of a Clinton thing. But yeah, Benghazi, Fast and Furious scandal, where they held Eric Holder in contempt of Congress.
Yeah.
So that one of the things that they're impeaching Trump for was something that the House found with respect to Eric Holder, this contempt of Congress too. And the IRS scandal was probably the other big one, where the IRS was investigating conservative groups much more strongly.
Yeah.
And I think the Republicans were talking about impeaching the IRS commissioner for a while.
Yeah,
because they were really irritated about that one.
No, I don't know. It's if at the end of the day he was named as an unindicted co-conspirator, maybe it's my criminal law background, because Michael Cohen, he was named in the indictment, not the indictment, in the sentencing document as an unindicted co-conspirator. And they can only do that if they had some probable cause that Trump was an unindicted co-conspirator. Like, they had to have some probable cause to even put him in the indictment that way. So it just
oh no, yeah. Well, whether or not Trump can be charged with any criminal activity is, of course, a whole other set of questions. But
that's the OLC.
I think you don't have to go too deep into your ADA mind to think, what could I possibly charge Trump with? Yeah, it's not going to take a whole lot of effort, I'm sure.
But I will say this though: no matter what anybody says about Trump, his rallies when he was running were hilarious. I used to love to watch it because he's like a comedian up there sometimes. I'm like,
yeah. No, he's a stand-up. He's a stand-up.
It's hilarious.
Got elected.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was funny because I was watching him. I'm laughing so hard. My wife was like, "What are you're laughing at that clown?" I'm like, "Babe, you gotta watch it for 5 minutes. The guy is hilarious. I see why people are just fixated on this guy. It's funny. He's
the man shit posted his way into the White House. How can you not laugh?
Oh man, and because it feels like he's just up there telling it like it is. Look at this stupid guy. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, this is another Trump. He makes you feel like he's just a regular guy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting, but
he seems like. I think one of the things that Trump, I think is very authentic. This is one of the problems that Hillary really ran to Trump with, because Hillary, who is she? Fundamentally, who is she, right? There was a great article that came out, I forgot, the week before the election or something, maybe at the time frame, 10 days or something. Basically was entitled "The 6 Faces of Hillary Clinton," and basically was looking at this one incident. I think This Is America Life did a podcast based on that story too, where they looked at this one vote dealing with corporate taxes and how she took all these very measured positions. And by the end, you're like, what exactly is her position? And no one can figure it out. She just feels everything's so staged. Trump is the opposite of that. He's not ego. He's id. He's id and just says whatever comes to his emotional mind.
Boom. Yes. It's hilarious. It's hilarious to see, especially sweet.
So
I love it.
It's an interesting thing, but
and don't get me wrong. The hardest vote I've ever had to make in my life, the hardest vote I had to make was for Hillary Clinton. I understand it. You got to understand why I had to do it, but that was the hardest vote I ever had to take. Every time I vote, it's just I vote for people I don't even know. But that was a hard vote to cast.
Bloomberg?
Oh yeah, I voted for Bloomberg.
Yeah.
And most people would think, I voted for Bloomberg twice. I voted for Giuliani, to be honest with you. That was before that was too young to vote. But then I was but yeah. So I voted for Giuliani because he did such a great job his first 4 years.
Yeah.
That next 4 years, it was just I don't even know what Democrat ran. I just was like, yo, I gotta vote my pocket, and I gotta vote my safety, and I gotta vote the neighborhood just better. So, and it's funny because a lot of people in the neighborhood actually voted for Giuliani, which I was surprised. I was like, oh, you guys, they're like, yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting because but in New York,
I do think that the entire impeachment, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish, because I like to think I'm at least a little political savvy, and I like a little bit gamemanship.
Yeah,
trying to game this out. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? What is the game? What is the plan? And like, I don't know what they're trying to plan, but it basically went about the same where I thought it was going to go. I basically thought this was exactly what would happen. Wasn't surprising. So like, I don't know, were the Democrats really hoping that someone was going to say something in the testimony in the impeachment hearings that was so bombshellish that was going to discover something that was going to change the game?
But
what
you
a
got
gamble, right?
But you got to understand, just like let's say if you have a case and they deny you the witnesses and and you can't subpoena anybody. Like as a prosecutor, if I can't subpoena documents and I can't force witnesses to come testify, I got no case. Yeah. I just got no case. Trump's got the documents. Here's a subpoena. F you. Have the witnesses come testify. F you. That's my case. My case is that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to some extent, that's a little bit of a forced error from the Democrats. I mean, they could have waited for the hearings to finish. That case in the DC District Court of Appeals was heard, I think, on January 13th, dealing with Mulvaney's testimony, I believe, and the executive privilege relating to that. And so, they're arguing in court that we shouldn't have to give the documents and all that stuff either. But that's part of the classic fight. The executive and legislative branches are fighting with each other. They go to court. They both say to court when they both get there, incidentally, they both say, court, you can't hear this, depending on what side it is. So like, this is not like a uniquely Trump argument, because I heard that like Adam Schiff was saying that in his impeachment closing arguments. Like, they're in court right now saying the courts have no jurisdiction over this and they shouldn't hear it. I'm like, yes, they are. And were it you'd be making the exact same damn argument. We both know it.
Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Right.
We've been down this road. You want me to pull the transcripts from whoever it was on your side of the fence who said it last? It's like, which of the 18,000 transcripts do you want? Right. But yeah, legislative and executive branches are fighting each other. The one that wants something goes to court. The other one says, you can't do this. Well, this is just an intra-political fight. You don't have the power. And they say, yes, we can. The court should totally get involved. And the court says, grumble, grumble, grumble. We hate our life. Grumble, grumble, grumble. But yeah, you could have just waited for that process to finish. But no, you wanted to put it on some arbitrary timeline because you wanted to impeach by Christmas so the Senate could finish by February, so that wouldn't interfere with the Democrats' re-election campaign.
But then what?
Rather than wait for that process to be finished.
You know what? I'll say this. I think the Democrats have some fault when this was happening before. They should have taken it to court early. Like as soon as they got in power, when they started asking to be in documents and they said no, you got to go to court right then and say, hey, this is unacceptable at that point. Not a year and a half later into the process. Go ahead.
And also, while I'm at it, the Democrats screwed the pooch a little on this particular one, because one of the arguments the Republicans have in their court filings, which is actually a really good argument, incidentally, is that the Congress didn't, or the House didn't have jurisdiction to issue the subpoenas, because lest we forget, the impeachment inquiry started, and then at some point later, like a month and a half later, then Pelosi passed a resolution authorizing the impeachment inquiry. So like normally, like committees don't have power except through what rules of the House there are. And they didn't create a committee they didn't authorize the impeachment before they started the hearings. And so like a lot of this is like, well, these subpoenas weren't valid because they had never voted them power. And so the whole process was screwed from day one. Now, like every impeachment ever has always started with an impeachment resolution. Why it didn't here, I don't know, but it was a massive legal mistake because it's one of the legal arguments the Republicans are using.
I think that gave them a legal argument. How good it is, I don't know. I think it just might be a little overstated for two reasons. Number one, the House has inherent subpoena power anyway. So even though I understand maybe authorizing the committee to have subpoena power for a particular purpose, I still don't think that it would, the Intelligence Committee still have subpoena power to
argument, but it was an argument that didn't have to give them in the first place. It was on a forced error.
I would agree with that, because I would still think that, the argument I'd be making in court is, but we still have inherent impeached subpoena power anyway, and we've been authorized to have subpoenas, and it was an Intelligence Committee, so here was a subpoena for the Intelligence Committee. Boom. They still have to honor it either way, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
quite possibly. I think that's a perfectly valid counter argument. But the fact that you didn't have to have the argument and you
That's
do
true.
is like it's an unforced error. It's like why are we having this argument when it was totally unnecessary? But yeah, I think your analysis is straight on point. And the fact also that it was being run primarily by the Intelligence Committee is odd.
That's
Normally
odd.
it'd be run for
That's odd.
Judiciary Committee,
Judiciary
but
Committee. Yeah.
you know,
But it is intelligence matters, and maybe they don't have. I think what's his name? Schiff was saying that they don't have they didn't have clearance because the Intelligence Committee has a higher level of clearance for top secret
yeah, I
documents.
guess.
So maybe that, even though that's an excuse, I think you're right on 2 points. Definitely, I think this was politically played poorly by the Democrats. Number
Yeah.
one, any prosecutor is going to tell you, if you give me no evidence, or you give me no witnesses, you give me no case. They went in knowing that and now are just trying to talk their way into a case. Number two, they're hoping that whatever subpoenas the Senate gets, then they'll get the subpoenas and everything, because they've already given up that their subpoenas are no good. So they're hoping the Senate subpoenas will get these people in. But again, they still don't know what these people are going to say. Now you have witnesses that you haven't even talked to, that the first time you're going to have a conversation with them is on the stand.
Yeah.
How stupid is that? But that's the risk you take when you jump there. So I do agree. Tactically, I think this was bad. I think this was politically motivated because of the timing. But I would just not try a case. And I'm not, I don't know what lawyer would try a case with a witness that you have never spoken to. You've not got a different visit. You don't even know if this guy still is alive at this moment.
Yeah,
and the first time you're going to have a conversation with him is on the stand testifying live. That I don't know.
That's not super encouraging for a lawyer. It's like they always like, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to, and every question I don't know the answer to, because like up to and including what is your name?
Yeah,
because I have no idea what's happening right now. So it's like, well, this is going to be fun as I try to ask the intelligent questions on the fly. Good luck with that plan. Let's see how good I really am. Yay!
But that's their plan, though. Isn't that their plan?
Yeah, a little bit.
Is that the plan? We want to talk to Mick Mulvaney, and we got 8 hours. So yeah, bring him in. Let's talk to him right now. Subpoena.
No, it's funny too, because like watching them like talk about the witnesses and stuff is funny. I've been enjoying that a little bit, because it was like it wasn't Schiff, was Nadler was on TV the other night and basically saying, I watched 2 segments, in one segment he's like, we shouldn't have to negotiate over witnesses. The very idea that we negotiate over witnesses is completely ridiculous. Fast forward 2 minutes later, and they want to call Hunter Biden. The idea that they want to call Hunter Biden is completely ridiculous. But they shouldn't be allowed to call that. What kind of sense does this make?
But why do they want to call Hunter Biden to ask him was he corrupt? I don't know. Like, why would you want to call him up? If any question, he could just take the Fifth, right? Especially if he was corrupt, he could just say Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
Well, that'd be good for a soundbite too.
That's true. I don't know. I still don't understand why they would call Hunter Biden. Like, I don't know. That's like, what questions would you ask him? I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to think.
Well,
like,
I'd ask him everything that has to do with Burisma, and just to like, what is this, and what were you getting paid, and what were you doing for them, and please tell us about how your daddy's name and money got you a job you had no right to whatsoever, and tell us how you're a part of the political elite and so forth and so on.
Yeah, I'd be like, objection, relevance, like, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's out of the window, Dave. I don't think objections to relevance are allowed now.
Relevance, right? Yeah. Oh my, he can't, and he can rule on objections, but he can be overruled by the Senate, right? So, and they can ask the questions
the Senate's
too.
making up their rules, so I don't know what rules of procedure they're using. Does anyone? I'm not sure.
Oh my God!
I studied in school.
I did like something that did happen today, though. I mean, yesterday, when they took Dershowitz and who else, and what's his name, Lindsey Graham, and during the presentation, they were like, you've heard that it needs to be a crime for it to be, for it to be impeachable. So they played Dershowitz, 1998. It doesn't have to be a crime to be impeachable. That they play Lindsey Graham. Impeachment is not about crimes, like so. And then So, but the only thing they're doing is the same thing that I think the Trump team is going to do to them. When you have Chuck Schumer, it's really got to be criminal activity, because they said they should know that their people said the exact opposite, like 20 years ago.
Well, that's true in a lot of things. I mean, you can do the rinse, repeat, reverse thing just a lot. I was making this comment once on a Leonard stream dealing with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I was like, okay, here's what I see is happening. And like, let me tell you what's going to happen in a congressional hearing 3 years from now. And I'm like, the Republicans are going to be arguing for this position. The Democrats will be arguing for this position. People are like, oh, you got that backwards. I'm like, no, I really didn't get that backwards. I meant it exactly the way I said it. Yeah, I understand that normally would go the other way. But if you think about the issue and you think about the political realities, I'm telling you, the Republicans are going to be making the everyone should be equal, no one should be discriminated against, and the girls are the Democrats are going to be saying, no, we need to have separation. Girls are special, they can't. The boys are special, they can't be mixed. Blah blah blah. I'm like, these are exactly the opposite talking points, but I could see the future date because that's how it goes.
Oh my god,
man. The hearing still hasn't happened yet. I still think I got a year left though, by that until that prediction falls apart. So we'll see how they're going to have a hearing in the next year or so to make my prediction come true.
Oh my god! We got a super chat. Boom!
Ooh, do we really? I didn't see a super chat. I didn't see any super chats today.
Oh yeah, it's right there. Read it out proud. Oh, I haven't showed up on the internal one yet. It's on the outside.
It's not on StreamYard.
I know. If you look at the live stream, you can see it. But it's just this probably just has to refresh. Just wait a couple of seconds because there's a couple of messages that came up after this. This is not the last message.
Yeah, I see comments, but I don't see a way to see like super chats. Is there a separate feed for that?
No. The feed hasn't updated inside. So like this last message, this from what's it, Illidin? Oh, there it is. You see it just popped up.
Yeah, well, it just jumped a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Nate BROADY, vote Hillary 2024.
That's right.
So there was a whole lot of stuff that just jumped in there.
You heard it. Black Leaf. Hillary Clinton 2024.
That's fine. I don't mind. Well, thank you for the $5 super chat, Nate. Vote Hillary 2024, says Nate BROADY.
That's right, because she's not. She's.
I think I'll be voting for a different woman in 2024, Nikki Haley.
Who?
The ambassador, former governor of South Carolina.
Oh, Nikki Haley. Oh yeah.
I think she's a lock, man. I think she's a lock for the nomination. I think she's a lock for the win 4 years from now.
The problem is that the electoral map for the Republicans is really starting to get to a critical mass, because I don't know, from when I've been looking at civics, the map has changed dramatically. The only thing that's keeping the Republican Party, I think, in power, or even any semblance of power, is back in the 90s and early 2000s, when they started that campaign for the gerrymandering campaign, going to the southern states, doing the gerrymandering campaign, especially right before the census, the last couple of census. It was fantastic work. They gerrymandered, they changed they redistrict to keep themselves in power for decades. It was fantastic work. But the map is changing in terms of just demographics. And if you look at the map, just look at the last couple of presidential nominations, the Republican hasn't won the popular vote in presidential nominations since Bush 2. So Bush 1 lost to Al Gore. So then Bush 2, he barely won the popular vote. And then every Republican after Bush 2 lost the popular vote. Romney, McCain, and
Bush won
Trump.
The popular vote the second time, right?
Yeah, but the first time he lost the popular vote.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And if you really think about it, if you can go all the way back to Clinton, right before Clinton, Bush 1. If you go from Clinton 1 all the way through, the Republicans have only won the popular vote one time in that span, from Clinton 1 all the way to today.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That is, if you think about how that map is starting to change, if that map continues, if that trend continues, and that gets bigger, it's just going to be, the map won't be able to help you. Won't be able to help the Republican Party as it has done in the past. And the Democrats are now getting smarter too with redistricting. So, the map, even though it seems red, it's going to be turning blue. It's just, there's too many other people out there who are turning it blue. Texas, for instance, they think it's going to be a swing state within the next 8 years. Texas.
Yeah. I was looking with like the preliminary census numbers. I think Texas is +3, and I think California is like -1. But yeah, we'll see when the 2021 census. Someone asked about the Equal Rights Amendment. Was that material to something I was asking about, or were they just asking in general? Was I discussing something that they were asking about the Equal Rights Amendment in connection to, or are they asking about that political crap show and my predictions on that?
Oh no, I just saying equal rights amendment, uncivil law, question mark. Oh,
Yeah,
if
I've given
finishing?
my opinion on the Equal Rights Amendment.
Oh no,
But
they're
long
probably
story
going to update.
short, the Virginia is going to pass the Equal Rights Amendment this term,
Yay.
100% chance. Then we get to have a fight over whether or not it counts. And this was interesting too. I saw this recently, and I was smiling because I knew what it meant, and like literally no one else did, and it made me laugh. Um, I'm trying to remember exactly what the context was, but there was some sort of display or something. Um, Geez, I'm trying to remember. It's some sort of national museum in DC. I'm trying to remember, and they were, the social justice warriors were getting really upset because I forget exactly what the issue is, but this like just happened like 2 weeks ago, so I could dig into it. And they're like, "Well, who's the guy? We gotta get the guy dismissed. Who's in charge of this particular exhibit? Why, it's the National Archivist of the United States. We got to get this guy thrown out of office, the National Archivist." I'm like, you guys are such idiots. You don't know who the National Archivist is, and if you get him thrown out of his job, I'm going to be so happy because what you don't know and what you don't know, but what I know is the National Archivist, for some reason, in other words, as a statute, is the guy who apparently gets to decide whether or not something's part of the Constitution now. So if you kick the National Archivist out over this museum display and it not giving enough credit to someone or something because of race, or I forget exactly what the issue is, and there are people like, we got to rid now. Apologies aren't good enough. He's got to resign. National Archivist down. I'm like, so then Trump gets to appoint his own National Archivist. Wow, man. I was like, I hope you guys get what you want because you do not see what's happening. I'm gonna laugh and laugh and laugh.
Oh man.
Yeah.
People get what they get what they ask for, so
yeah,
it's crazy.
But yeah, Virginia's gonna pass it. The National Archivist is gonna say it's not valid because the time frame passed by Congress hasn't it expired.
Was that passed by
Congress
statute?
is going to fight about it for a while. They're eventually going to retroactively extend the timeline. Some future archivist is going to say it's valid, and then if we haven't already had many court fights at that point, then we have many court fights, and so that is a preview of the next 10 years. Yeah, I've seen that play in my mind too.
But hold on, didn't that play out in 1992? In for the last amendment, that same thing happened. The last amendment was where it was like one state held out for like 100 years, and
1992 was the 27th Amendment. It was part of the original Bill of Rights. It was the original Second Amendment, and someone dug it up and got ratified. But the distinction is that it didn't have a time limit when it was proposed. So it didn't have a time limit either in the text of the amendment or in the resolution that proposed it. So it was just unbounded. And so the decision was that it was valid but here in the Equal Rights Amendment, it isn't in the text of the amendment, but it was in the original resolution that put it forward. And so there's questions as to what degree does that bind or not bind? Are the signatures after that valid? It raises a whole host of new questions that I don't think the 27th Amendment asked. It's a different question.
Oh, Barney, there are a couple of questions in the chat. Serious question for lawyers. I get the allegations should be investigated, Biden's and all, but how does that work inside a different investigation and process? And then he puts, if Trump is being impeached for obstructing Congress, what is the relevance of the Biden testimony?
Well, presumably either Joe Biden or Hunter Biden, or both for that matter, would be able to offer testimony that might be relevant to, whether or not there was official corruption in terms of Hunter Biden getting money that he shouldn't get, or whether or not, there were bribes or whatever. I mean, it could be. I mean, it could be relevant in terms of getting out further information from either one of them. In terms of how different investigations work, I mean, every police department and every agency has a different program. So one of the, I don't know, 350 different agencies that have theoretical jurisdiction over this could decide to investigate and look at records and stuff like that and choose to do something, which of course none of them will, because they don't want the egg on their face. So probably the impeachment inquiry is as good a chance to get something from either of them as possible. Also, it has the side benefit of Joe Biden potentially, not that this has ever happened before, but Joe Biden making some kind of gaffe.
Oh my God.
That could in some way hurt him in the campaign. So there's that bonus.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. Obstructing Congress. Well, if we're talking about just obstructing Congress, I don't think it has anything to do with it, because that's just about we issue you subpoenas. You don't give subpoenas, and I've subpoenaed witnesses and they don't show up, and by under direction of the president. So I see with the obstruction of Congress, that's what they hit Nixon with too. So that went. But for the quid pro quo or the abuse of power, it would be relevant in the sense of if he's saying they should be invested. I've heard this bad things about these guys, I want you guys to investigate, then I think it would be relevant. But that's not the claim. The claim is different. Well, the claim is that he just wanted an investigation announced, because that's what Gordon Sondland said. It wasn't about, and I forget the other person who said it, but it wasn't about actually doing the investigation, but just announcing one. So now we have a different ball of wax. So I don't know if it'd be relevant just with that simple change of facts. It may not be relevant, because why would, even if it's true, he wasn't. Yeah. He did ask for an investigation. He did ask for an announcement of an investigation.
Well, if it were in fact true, then it would go to the motive, and perhaps a righteous motive instead of a corrupt motive. If we accept the premise that no one is above the law, right? Okay. Then that would presumably include Biden, and to the extent that he did something illegal by putting pressure on you, because one of the allegations was that Joe Biden put pressure on Ukraine. Yeah. Fire a prosecutor in Ukraine who has some investigations going on to whatever. And there are reasons that might not have been a problem, but that was one of the allegations. So to the extent that there were problems there, or there were issues there, if Trump believed that the Bidens, either one of them, was guilty of something, and so he said, hey, Ukraine, just so long as I happen to have you on the phone, I have this knowledge about something that the Bidens did, and because I'm a good law-abiding American and I want to make sure no one's above the law, would you do me a solid and double check this for me and see if there's a problem, because I want to make sure that everyone's held to account? Then it speaks more positively of his motive. So a lot of what Trump's doing and the impeachability, at least in my eyes, goes to whether it's forward looking or backward looking. If it is what happened in the past, investigate that seems more legitimate, as opposed to please dig up dirt on my potential political rival for 2024. So which of those two universes has a material difference into the intent, motive behind it? So it's relevant to that. And that's the purest version of that answer.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, all right, so I do see the point that you're talking about his motives. Did he have criminal motives or corrupt motives? But I don't know. It just number one, he's not the president of Ukraine. Right? This would be under Ukrainian law if there was any type of corruption for the Bidens, right? It would be under Ukrainian law. So he's going and saying you should investigate one of your own people who happens to be an American citizen. I don't know. I don't know. It's almost like I'm looking for a crime and then asking the prosecutor, and then on the back end too, what happens if they're not guilty? What happens if there's nothing wrong? Then does that mean his motives are now, could you say he has corrupt motives, or, is it okay? I don't know.
Well, I mean, that was the most charitable spin I could give. I mean, you can still make the position that even if everything I said is true, the fact that you're targeting this particular issue as opposed to any of the number of other things that you could be investigating, like you're showing a bias in investigating that as opposed to something else. So, and you could also make the argument that you didn't go about it in the right channels because, of course, we do have formally established channels. So if we want to ask for help in official ways, we have specific ways of our State Department asking their State Department, blah, 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 blah.
And then
so they should have done that too.
But then also with the withholding of the money, because like I think the argument we even hold, but then with the holding of the money, it just all seems bad. I don't know why they withheld the money, because I think you could have still got the pressure without withholding the cash. But they're saying that the cash wasn't withheld because of the hold on. What is the argument now? Because I know some people are saying the cash wasn't withheld for this reason. Some people saying the cash wasn't withheld. Just so everybody knows, Ukraine gets military assistance from the U.S. and it's a stupid little thing, but it's like, we give you $584 million. Now you give us back $584 billion and we give you back now tanks. It's like a stupid process. So that's the process. They reallocate the money, they give it back to us, and then we give them the tanks. So the money has to go change hands. But then why stop that process? Because it seemed like, and from all the reports, it seems like that process was stopped because of and even Trump said he doesn't want to give them the corrupt money. Now I know it happened sometimes in the past, I think with Egypt under the Obama administration, where they held up some funds because Egypt had just had the military coup. So they were like, we're not going to give all the money to the people who are, running the military coup. So we're going to hold back. But that, I think, is a legitimate reason to hold back some funds. No.
Yeah. I mean, there's many points of critique, and as people in the chat have been alluding to, there are formal channels for formal cooperation. We've signed formal cooperation agreements, and so if we want their cooperation, there are official formal channels to do that. But of course, politicians, especially like heads of state, often do what called back channeling, right? And they may talk directly to each other. They go outside of like these official established formal channels.
That's where the business. That's where business.
So the idea that they have an official formal channel, and they said just during a phone call, let's skip 18 steps. And by the way, could you help us out? I mean, it's not like unprecedented in that respect.
No. And that's the way real business gets done. Back channel. You're not making statements. You're talking through those back channels. But I don't know. It's all interesting. But we all know. I think the conclusion: Trump is not getting impeached. He's not probably even going to get a majority of citizens going to vote against. Just like what happened with the Democrats and Clinton. So, for those who will pray that Trump is going to get, again, prosecutors with no witnesses and no evidence, they're not prosecutors. They're just giving speeches. That's all they're doing. And that's just keeping it real. That's just really keeping it real.
No, absolutely. So what else is going on? What we could talk about? The Covington kids case, of course, with CNN settled.
I wonder why CNN settled.
Number on it. My bet is 3 million is my prediction.
I don't know why they settled with the group of kids, not just
I think that case was just Sandman, wasn't it? Or was
it? Because Sandman's case was horrible. Like even the 3 that they left in, those 3 seem they're going to be dismissed too. Like there's only like 3, like they had 30. It started with 33. Statements, and there's like 3 left.
One where there was exchanging of eating of shorts. Because Viva got it wrong and said he'd eat his shorts if he wasn't, and he was, and so forth.
That was the eating of shit. That's the one.
And so the judge let back in like 3 or 4 of them. And after that, they settled out for an undisclosed amount. So that case is
Sandman. Closed. So Sandman settled out.
Yeah,
with those 2.
Because settled that case.
You know what? Discovery. That's probably what happened. Because I can see that way. If now you get Discovery, then it's like, all right, let's settle this, because you don't want to open everything up. Yeah. That's probably what happened.
The speculation was it was because of reasons of discovery. CNN didn't want to get all their internal emails and stuff,
of course,
exposed during the lawsuit. So it was, how much do we have to pay just to not do discovery, basically? And so my prediction has been $3 billion. I think they were asking for like $300 million or something like that. I'm like, man, they probably sold for 3. My bet.
So that's
what I'm predicting.
So that means CNN didn't survive. That means CNN lost in the motion to dismiss.
Yeah, well, they initially won the motion to dismiss, and then the judge reconsidered.
I think you're talking about 2 different cases. Okay, for the Washington Post case, that's the one they won the motion to dismiss, then the judge reconsidered and brought back to 3. The CNN case, I'm not sure what happened initially, but that's a different case. CNN case is a different case.
Yeah, maybe I'm confused.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out, because that means if they got to discovery, then they had to go through the motion to dismiss it. CNN had to lose that for them to get discovery, because the first thing you do is in the answer motion to dismiss.
Yeah,
For failure to state a claim, because that's what that's what they did.
fair enough. Too many people suing too many people. It's hard to keep them all straight in your head, right?
But hey, I'm happy for the Covenant kids. They got some good, and they deserved a little.
The whole
too.
situation
they
was messed up. Those
Yeah.
kids were smeared in the
Yeah,
media
they were. Yeah,
for nothing. I mean, he's just standing there like it's totally passive.
They were called racist.
Smirk. This is the smirk of white privilege. Nate, what the hell is the smirk of white privilege?
Something that CNN made up. Something CNN made up on the fly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Apparently, if I smirk in just the right way, it represents my authority over the oppressed minorities or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel bad for those kids, and and you're right. They were just there. It's funny because the other reports from around there, one of the things that had happened was the police, after taking the reports, found out that there was a group of the Black Hebrew Israelites that actually started the whole ruckus and everything. So the kids weren't even the people who started it, and that the kids were just doing that in response to them screaming their racist stuff. So it was weird. It was like everything got reversed in the telling of the story. So
I know what we can talk about. We can talk about the recent Virginia gun rights rally in Richmond.
I know nothing.
Ask me anything, Nate.
I don't know. How was it? How was the?
Well, I didn't go this year, but I've gone 8 out of the last 10 years, and so I'm very familiar with the rally. It always occurs on Martin Luther King Day. So for those of you who missed the memo, there was a big gun rights rally in Richmond, Virginia this year. According to the Capitol Police, they said 23,000, I think was the last number I saw.
Oh wow!
That people showed up. They had some of the streets blocked off, and the streets were completely full of people. There were no guns allowed in the 23 acres of the Capitol, but there were guns allowed on the streets. And this rally occurs every year on Martin Luther King Day because the Virginia State Legislature meets for they have the short session and long session, which is 3 months or 4 months. So they meet from that first week in January for about 4 months. And so Martin Luther King Day is the second week the Virginia legislature is in, and it's on a Monday, and it's a federal holiday. So as a result of that, it has become known as Lobby Day, not just for the gun rights groups, but for all the groups. So I've been down there 8 of the last 10 years. And when I've been down there, there've been groups running up and down the building because there's so many people, you can't use the elevators. You're running up and down the buildings trying to meet with people, and you see their stickers for reform motorcycle helmet laws and save whales and support the Opanaka River Delta and all kinds of stuff. And normally in normal years it is 500, 700 of the pro-gun people who were there, and they let you take guns into the Capitol building, into the legislature's building, which is pretty badass. Wow. If you have a concealed carry permit. So you're running up and down the stairwells of the office building where all the state legislatures meet, and there's 500 people doing this with guns. It's great. And so that's normal years. And then this year 23,000 people showed up, and I think CNN was sad that there was no violence because I don't know, because you saw them pimping out. Oh my God, this is going to happen. First of all, I just like to state for the record, all right, as a person who's been long affiliated with VCDL, the group that organized this, executive member, they are not a white nationalist group. They are not a supremacist group. That was one of the things. Yes, they're not neo-Nazis of any kind. So this is more manufactured. Yeah, this was one of the wonderful media spins. They said, "Oh, this pro neo-Nazi group is coming to do a rally." I'm like, no, none of those things.
Oh my God, they defamed you guys though. Well, because you're an aggregate group, so you can't. But that's still crazy. Wow, they got it really wrong.
No, and I think there was the initial reports were no arrests. It turned out later there was one arrest, and apparently it was for someone who was wearing a mask and refused to take it off after multiple requests. Because a lot of states in the South have these anti-mask laws from the KKK days. And so like there are rules about wearing masks in public. So I'm not the expert on this field. I just know what the law underlying is. And so apparently there was one guy who was wearing a mask and refused to take it off despite many, many requests. So that was the only arrest. Despite the 23,000 people with guns and stuff, it's like there was no violence, there was no problem. Antifa, you saw Antifa actually walking through. Antifa was there with their banners, dump Trump, and they were just, saying all our scurrilous things, and everyone was just looking at them like, okay. And it was really weird because, we've seen past events where Antifa will get really violent and, they'll be really aggressive and physically aggressive. And, for some reason, when they were completely flanked on every side by people carrying guns, they were much less violent for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. But somebody wrote in the chat, is there any reason why it's particularly MLK Day?
Just because it's convenient. Because as I was saying, in Virginia, the state legislature only meets for like 3 months or only meets for 4 months. They don't meet the entire year. So unlike Washington, D.C., where they never, ever leave, in Virginia, the state legislature only meets for 3-4 months. And in Texas, they only meet like every 2 years. So like the idea that the state legislature is only there for a short amount of time. So they meet from like that first week of January for like 3 or 4 months because it depends what year it is. They have the short year and they have the long year. Like the long year is 4 months and the short year is like 3 months. So it's 3 or 4 months depending on which year it is. And MLK Day is the first day of the second week and it's a federal holiday. So it's just really convenient because so many people have day off anyway because it's a federal holiday. So it's really early in the session and it's a federal holiday. So it's just convenient. That's why they choose MLK Day. That's really the reason. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's just convenient.
And it's just and you said there's a whole bunch of groups who are lobbying just for different things too. So.
Oh yeah, no. In past years, I've seen groups on everything. I don't know if anyone else lobbied this year. I have a sneaking suspicion the answer to the question is no.
No, yeah.
It's really interesting because I think it's an unspoken agreement because I don't remember having a vote on it at any point. I'm an executive member of VCDL, so I think I'd have a vote on some point. But through unspoken agreement, the pro-gun people come in the morning and the anti-gun people come in the afternoon. I'm not sure how this develops, but this is a thing. And apparently the anti-gun people skipped this year because they were concerned about the state of emergency and being attacked, and there's no reason to be concerned. I've been happy for them to be there. They can be there lobbying. That's cool. I believe in everyone's freedom of speech. I mean, I've been there, as I say, like 8 of the last 10 years. I've gone to this thing in Richmond. I'm very familiar with it. I've seen anti-gun people run through the building too. It's never been a problem ever. I'll tell you like one experience that was just it sticks in my memory. I remember one year they were having a lie down. Like the idea is like we're going to lie down on the streets or lie down on this park to represent us being dead. So we're having this lie-in or whatever they called it. So they did that, and then someone started singing, and I got really, really irritated because I thought they were being mocked. I thought it was like one of our people that was singing and like mocking them. And so, like, I was like making a beeline for this person because I'm like, you can't do that. You can't do, they have a right to, they have the right to do that. And it turned out it was one of their people that was leading the sing, was so off key. That was one of their people leading the charge. I figured it out before I confronted this person. But my first thought was it was one of our people mocking them. I'm like, you can't do that. They have a right of freedom of speech too. So, I never had a problem with, our compatriots who are running up and down the halls. And as I look at them with their buttons, be like, do you want to ban guns? Yeah, we don't want to ban that. How you guys doing this year? Doing okay? We're doing good too. I got the Glock 19 this year. What do you got? Nothing? Okay.
So somebody wrote me in the chat, Nate Brody, what are your thoughts on I see New York SRPA versus NYC case? I don't know with New York. I'm not sure.
New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, the Second Amendment right to bear case, U.S. Supreme Court this term.
No, I haven't seen that case at all. I don't know what that case is about.
Okay, well,
I'm assuming it's
argued at the U.S. Supreme Court this term on a right to bear case. Basically, long story short, New York had a bunch of laws that restricted people's right to carry firearms out of their home, except to very limited shooting ranges.
Correct.
And they couldn't stop anywhere. They couldn't take it to another home. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's
and
very
then,
strict.
New York City changed the law, and so now it's just become an argue over whether it's moot or not. So the issue is not really anymore whether the New York law was appropriate or not, or legal or not. Now the issue is whether the issue is moot, and so they're asking you an opinion on that, because last time it came up on my stream, I got a little bit irritated at my chat, which was my bad.
Why?
That was my bad for getting irritated there, because I decided to cover a different case that week in my Supreme Court Reacts, because they've been saying we need to cover this oral audio, and I said no, because it was like, it's not really interesting to me. It's a very minutiae case of mootness.
Yeah,
so they're asking your opinion because I chastised them.
I'm surprised though, if it's because are you sure it's not like a not more, I'm about to say Marbury Madison. It's not like Roe v. Wade, where even though they resolved the mootness issue and then they went to the heart of the case, it's not like that.
I mean, it could be. That's what I said. I said that as part of the analysis, and Evil Triple was right. I got mad at him. Yeah, the Roe v. Wade was ever occurring yet evading review. So like my answer is it's 98% dig. Dismisses improvidently granted.
Oh,
with or without commentary, and the 2% remaining are some sort of evading review jiu-jitsu move or something. So.
But they would grant cert to hit it on a mootness.
Well, it wasn't moot when they took cert. As soon as they took cert,
that's when they mooted.
New York City ran screaming like a little girl to Albany to get a law passed to make the whole thing go away. So it became moot rapidly once it got accepted for cert.
Because I know down here a lot of there was a petition going around. They wanted to try to fight. Like here, if you want to get a carry permit, they usually deny you, but it takes I think it's like $500 now if you want to get a permit. Yeah, and they can still deny you. So people are now want to fight that and say, well, if you want to even if you want to keep it in your own home, you still got to get a license. License like $300 something bucks. So people are saying that you're forcing us to pay for a constitutional right, to exercise a constitutional right, protection of your home with a gun.
Tested Cottingham asked, serious question on civil law. How many laws are there? Do you know? No.
Ooh,
no one knows how many laws there are. Lots. Tens of thousands.
Was it Thomas Jefferson? Was he the one that said all laws should have like a 15-year shelf life?
Yeah, no one knows the answer to that question. Famously, the Congressional Research Service themselves gave up trying to count quite some years ago. So no one knows the answer to that question. The case has not been thrown out yet out of mootness. The Supreme Court has not yet decided it. I'm just projecting what will happen. I'm projecting it will be thrown out for mootness. But yeah, I don't know.
But you know what? That question all depends. If you're talking about statutes, yes. But if you're talking about common law, then that's going to be a hell of a thing, because you're talking about all treatises and common law maybe not, but statutes I think it might be a little easier. Nate Brody, $300 application fee, $90 fingerprinting was party over it, but it got dropped because Second Circuit ruled that as long as the fee is not more than what it actually costs. Interesting. Thank you for the follow-up. Now I know.
Yeah.
So they ruled because they actually cost them $340. So the fee can only be what it costs them to actually do the background check. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because every time a case has gotten close to the Supreme Court, the states have always backed out one way or another. I was pointing this out on the stream too. Now usually it's the states lost at the level below and they decide not to appeal. That's what happened to Illinois in the Seventh Circuit when they decided right to carry Illinois. Illinois lost in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. This was run by then Judge Posner, saying that it was not constitutional, and Illinois decided not to appeal and went from no issue to shall issue. Same thing happened to DC. DC lost its right to carry case, went from no issue to shall issue when it lost in DC Court of Appeals. And so this was on the issue was on the other foot this time, because New York State won at the level below, so they couldn't decide not to appeal. All they could do is try to make the issue go away by trying to circumvent it. And so they went from we think our law is great to we think our law sucks and we hate our law and our law is stupid. We don't know what we were thinking. I mean, I know last month we told you it was the greatest law ever, and I know you last month we said it was just the greatest law. We need this law because it's super important because of safety and blah 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 blah, and just the greatest. But let me tell you what. We were just way off on the reservation on this one. We were just, woo! I don't know where that came from. Yeah, so we'll see.
You know what? I wanted to ask you, what did you think about this? What do you think about the grand bargain they're talking about? Universal health care for what's it called? For reciprocity for Second Amendment carry laws.
Yeah.
That's the bargain. If the Democrats give up reciprocity for
I'll negotiate. Yeah, I'll negotiate on reciprocity. If I can get some national reciprocity, I'll do a little horse trading. Yeah,
but the Democrats want universal health care for reciprocity.
Yeah, what do you want?
Universal health care. That's what they want.
Universal health care?
That's supposed to be the grand bargain.
One's a lot more expensive than the other, so there's a monetary issue.
But it connects together because one, they say, just in case one causes the other too,
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't, I don't necessarily oppose universal health care. Well, I think we need to change our healthcare system, one or the other. We're kind of in this weird, unhappy spot. It's like both too regulated and not regulated enough at the same time. It's like we got to pick one or the other. Like we could make it like way more unregulated because there are medicines like that. For example, laser eye surgery is much more unregulated, and the ones that are unregulated tend to be profitable and cheaper for consumers at the same time because there's a lot more competition. So we either need like more medicine to be less regulated and allow more frequent market competition, or we need it to be way more regulated. And I don't know if single payer is the right idea. Personally, I support the idea of a nationwide healthcare exchange. Which is rather than letting the states do exchanges, let's have a national exchange. We have it for federal employees. They basically are on a national exchange. All the federal employees buy, for example, I mean, there's many different plans, but to pick one random, the Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP plan, the federal employee program. It's available to people in all 50 states because it's federal employees. So like no matter where you are in the United States, you're not buying from a state, you're buying from the national Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. Okay, great. So why don't we just do that on a nationwide level? Why don't we set up a nationwide exchange? And what's really great about it is it gives the federal government so much leverage because it says, hey, healthcare company, right now, the very best you can do is sell to like the biggest state in the country, which is California, which is 53 million people or something like that. How'd you like to sell to 7 times that many people? How'd you like to sell to 7 times that many people? Well, we got a deal for you. It's called a national healthcare exchange, and you can sell in the exchange to 7 times more consumers. And here's what it's going to cost you, because we're the ones creating the market. We get to set up the terms, and I think I got quite a shit ton of leverage if I'm like, oh, by the way, and if you think this is not a good deal, one of your competitors will, and they're going to drive you out of business.
But isn't that
like, if you think my terms are too onerous, better hope that everyone else does too.
But isn't that Obamacare?
Well, Obamacare allowed for Obamacare set up state exchanges, not nation.
Okay, then I'm sorry. Yeah.
So that was the difference between Obamacare
and that's what Trump was. And that's what Trump said. That's what Trump kept saying during the campaign. Let's remove the barriers from the states and let them go across state lines.
Right. So, like, one of the problems in healthcare insurance, in my humble opinion, is you have states which are like not competitive markets because not a lot of people live there. A lot of states where not a lot of people live, and so they only have like 1, 2 healthcare providers on the exchange. It's like, so you have a monopoly, duopoly, triopoly, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, this isn't really good. So how can we get more competition? Because I being a good Republican, like free market solutions when I can. How can I encourage more competition? Well, can't really get more competition because the market's kind of saturated. Someone else could come in and try to bust up this 3-way fight they got, but they wouldn't get enough market share when they're done to justify the operating costs. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So it's like no way to do that. But it's like, I got a deal for you. How'd you like to sell to 350 million people? Ooh, 350 million consumers I can sell my product to. What a great deal. That's 7 times more people. That's 7 times more money in my pocket. Wow. I love this deal. The 7 times more deal. How do I get part of this deal? Well, let me tell you the terms. Ooh, very exciting. And that way, I think it's really good for consumers because it's a lot easier to compare healthcare plans to healthcare plans because there's one big national exchange. So it becomes much easier for Consumer Reports et al. To do like competitive matchups between the, however many companies are going to wind up on this thing. And, you can give them quite a lot of freedom and in terms of what plans they offer, and everyone can just try to club everyone else to death in the marketplace as prices get driven down. I was thinking also the federal government could have some kind of incentives. We're going to give we're going to say you have to spend at least 85% of the money on healthcare. But if you're the company that has the lowest level of expenses, you get to only spend 80% of your money on healthcare. That's an extra 5%. You big fat corporate execs get to take home in your piggy bank for you in your pocket. How'd you like to have an extra $30 million of income this year? That's real exciting. All you have to do is figure out a way to beat all your other competitors in making healthcare costs cheaper and watch them all race each other to the bottom.
But isn't that the first thing they'll do is, now, we don't want people to get like what's going on now. If you want to get an operation that costs a lot of money, it's going to be now a lot harder in the competition. If the competition's like that, a race to the bottom. So it would, I don't know, maybe you're talking about more preventative care. I don't know how the market correct for that, because now it seems like you'd almost put it back to a system where it is now, where people are just with some, if you have, terminal illness, they just don't want to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Pre-existing conditions for it back.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying, because I'm looking for a way to make costs cheaper. So let's say that, a particular procedure costs $2,000 today. And I say, well, I'm going to create this nationwide exchange. It costs $50,000. Not everyone can afford healthcare, so their uninsured price is $50,000. That's not really good. I'd like this to be cheaper. So I'm going to say, hey, healthcare company, if you can make it cheaper, I will give you millions and millions and millions of dollars because it will be bad for consumers so they'll constantly be racing each other.
Yeah.
So someone will say, I could do it for 45 uninsured. Oh, I can do it for 40 uninsured. I'm like, that's great. Here's more money. Just take the money, put it right into your pockets as you're driving these prices down, for the uninsured cost. And, I'm just using greed as leverage to get what I want, lower prices. That's great. I get lower prices for everyone, and you get millions and millions of dollars in a second yacht. What's not to like about this plan?
It's a very good plan, except
it's a good plan. Vote for me for president.
Mueller
2024.
Only thing I hate is the deficit. What happened to the deficit hawks too in Congress? I remember back in the day, it was like with Obama, he couldn't like smoke a cigarette without, justifying it. Where's the money coming from? But Trump has got $1 trillion. I will
100% concede that
a year.
I will 100% concede that point. This has been an irk of mine in conservative circles. We have not been good about this. This is one of the things the Tea Party was good about. That Trump is certainly not caring about. Everyone's just like, let's blow up the debt. I'm like, no, this is not working. This is not working for President Mueller. President Mueller has a solution to this. It's not the greatest solution, but it's a plan. Call it the 1% plan. I was like, okay, say I become president today.
All right.
Here's my plan. The budget we passed last year is now the budget. Okay. I don't care how we got here. Okay, what happened before, we're just bygones be bygones. The budget last year is now the budget now. Okay, this is our budget going forward. If you want to spend money for anything, if you want to increase any money, you have to pay for it 101%. So you have to overpay for it. So you can do whatever you want to accomplish that objective. But it's like, oh, I would like to. The military says, I'd like to buy, 100 new tanks. I'm like, that's super. How much is that going to cost? It's going to cost $10 billion. Okay, well, you have to come up with 10 billion, 100 million, of payment for it somewhere. And that way, it's not so onerous, right at the top. It's not me saying, let's figure out how to cut 30% of the budget overnight, because that's not going to happen. But it's if every time they're like, well, we like this program, I'm like, great. Then you just have to figure out if you like that program more than 101% of, its equivalent, because I'm going to make you overpay for it until we're back in neutral. So
Well,
that's my plan is the 101% plan.
Well, hold on, but don't forget you have two pies. You got the discretionary spend pie, where just discretionary stuff is like the military. You can always up and down on the military, but then you have non-discretionary spending, which is like interest on the debt and things of that nature. Where you know, have to do debt servicing and things, and there's some other programs that you'd have. So
yeah.
So really, the side of the pie that you're talking about is just the military budget, because the military budget is almost $1 trillion a year.
Well, it's a lot of
600 million. So you know, if anything, you're talking about ballooning, because now you got $600 million, and you're telling them they got to find the money. That money that we're spending on the military is all borrowed money. You know what I'm saying? But we're borrowing it now from China. You know, I don't know. I don't know if because now you're saying borrow another extra 100. What is it? An extra 1%?
No, I mean, I'm saying that
how do you pay for what we got?
101%. So, like, if you want to, like, effectively, you're trading something for something else. So, like, if you had a total budget of $1 trillion, then if you want to change it, then 1% of that would be what? 10 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, effectively, it would make your new budget 990 billion.
Okay.
Because you every time you're buying something new, you have to pay for it by reducing your expenses somewhere else.
See, I'm thinking about like
increasing tax or revenue. So you have to do one thing, two things. You have to increase revenue, or you have to decrease expenses. Yeah, you can't borrow money. No, that's not.
All right. See, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, because right now we're talking about we're still borrowing money. So you're saying you would stop us borrowing money? That would be it. We got it.
No, because we're borrowing money on the current budget.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like your budget.
So we're going to still borrow money. I'm just trying to figure out a way to borrow less money over time.
Okay.
So, like, however much money we're borrowing now is the amount of money we'll continue borrowing. Because I'm just going to say this is the budget we all agree on. So this is where we are, and we'll continue borrowing that amount of money, and we can just do it forever. But if you ever want to like change anything, you have to change it to the tune of 101%. So you either have to like find revenue or decrease spending 101% to pay for something different. And that way you're like just having to make a 1% cut every time. So if you want to do a $10 million change, then all you have to do is find what is that, $100,000 worth of offsets somewhere. So you figure it out, and over time, then it becomes less.
Yeah, because you're paying down.
It's a plan.
No, I'm just thinking it out, because I think right now, we're talking about the economy being good, but it's really being juiced off these tax cuts that we just got, and that's what's really ballooning the deficit. We had a deficit coming in from Obama, and you cut taxes, so that just cuts more of your money. Now you got a bigger deficit, but it's super juiced the economy. So we're living in this like bubble that I think everybody, it's like back when the crash happened with Bush. We all see the bubble. We're living in the bubble, but we just don't know where it's being driven at. And I think these tax cuts are it's a huge piece of why the deficit has exploded, and I'm still surprised that the Republicans passed it, understanding that, because dropping business taxes from 36% to 21%, that's just giving away money at that point in time, and you're already talking about $800 million budget deficits, and take another 10% of business taxes off the table. I don't know how you square that circle. That was the real disappointment to me, because I thought it would be like, okay, now we're going to get some fiscal conservatives in here. Now we're going to do this, and to really just put all the fiscal
discipline is an extreme concern of mine. It's a medium to long term problem, but it's one that we need to deal with sooner rather than later. It's just global warming, exactly the same problem. It's like it's not a problem today; it's a problem in the medium to long term. So, like both, And as for like global warming, my solution there is like try to figure out any way I can to like create economic incentives so people will choose to buy it, as a matter of free will. First of all, as your president, I'm pretty sure I can just order all federal buildings to use green power.
Yeah.
So like I'll do that. And then I'll just figure out whatever tax incentives I can to figure out ways to encourage people to install green energy. Get more of those transferable tax energy credits that you can buy, get more of those on the market.
But don't forget, the more people you can make self-sufficient with these greener policies, the more people you're going to be making employed, though.
No, that's part of we're just trying to create a kickstart into the economy, because like as more demand increases, the price will go down because there's more competition. So
Yeah.
this isn't a perpetually feeding problem. It's just like we have to get it to some sort of critical mass so that it will feed itself. And also will give you even more bonus if you buy green energy products that were manufactured in the US, because why not? I can give myself a increased US manufacturing sector while I'm at it too.
You spending a
Like,
lot of
we'll
money
give you
though.
green energy, give you incentives, and we'll give you more incentives if they're US made.
You are spending a lot of money here. These incentives for taxes.
Well, I
These
have the
incentives here. Incentives
101%
here.
plan. So I'll figure out I have to pay for it, yes, but it's part of the plan.
It's part of the plan. It's part of the plan. I'm like, this guy.
Yeah, it's a 101% plan. So
You're
yes.
sounding like a liberal over here, man. I'm like,
Yeah, no, I have plans. I have already thought about my presidential term in excruciating detail and various things I will do to fix the world.
Well,
So this is part of my platform. Vote for me.
Listen, for me, climate change back in Paris Accords,
Yeah.
fight of our lives. I'm trying to get that done. For taxes, I don't know. I'd have a different take on it. I think our graduated tax system is kind of broken a little bit.
Yeah,
I think
I like some of Andrew Yang's ideas. I like the idea that this VAT he's got. It's a much more intelligent way of doing taxes on corporation than the current tax schemas that we have. So it might be a good idea to abolish all the corporate taxes and replace it with VAT-based taxes instead, because that way you get every change. Now, I'd actually have to work that through economically and see if that actually works, but it's at least an idea. I'd say, well, what would that look like if we really did that? What would those numbers look like? But it's an interesting idea, and it's a good way to capture tax revenue that we're not currently getting. So that's an interesting idea of his.
The tax code now, even under Republicans who sat there and marveled at the change. We've rewritten the tax code. Remember, they had the postcard. You'll be able to file your taxes on your postcard, which is a lie. Nobody's filing taxes on the postcard. But the one thing is that a company like Amazon, richest company on the planet, pays no federal taxes. We got a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense. But it is what it is.
Yeah, but the VAT might be a way to capture some of that tax revenue we're not currently getting. Because if you have to pay tax every time value is added, then Amazon would be paying tax every time it's getting product. Now, of course, they can pass some of that on to the consumer, but they were going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
But at least Amazon is paying the tax when they add value to the products through their manufacturing. So that might be a way to capture a lot of tax revenue that we're currently missing.
But
because I don't have to worry about
VAT for everybody is value added tax.
Yeah,
but it's
an idea.
It's still, I don't know. To me, it's a sales tax by another name. Except now you're going further.
Yes,
down,
it is a sales tax by another name. You're correct. Yes. Next objection.
I just was thinking it just seemed like all right. Yeah. Okay. Value added tax. I like it. You.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't my original idea, but it does have a lot of efficiencies that it would be interesting to look at in terms of that. And I also like Yang's idea of the UBI, but the only way that I could justify doing it is as a total replacement for all current federal subsidies, welfare programs. So I mean all of it, which means Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, everything. And there's no way I'm getting any votes for this. No one's going to vote for the let's replace everything with UBI plan.
No. Matter of fact, did you see the Andrew Yang meme? The one where he has the whipped cream.
Yeah,
and it pours into the guy's mouth, and this is kind of sick, man, aren't you? You're running for president, guy. You're running for president.
Yeah, well, I've given some consideration to some of these thoughts, and it's I've given some ideas here. So,
what do you think about Tulsi?
Also, I can put together a lucid sentence and speak on complex ideas with some sort of competence. So that's a plus.
Hey,
I'm over 35. I'm eligible. Let's go.
What do you think about Tulsi Gabbard? Because I know a lot of people like Tulsi. I don't know. I hate Tulsi Gabbard, but I don't know. She seems. I don't know. She's a beautiful woman, though. Beautiful woman. I would date her, but I wouldn't vote for her. I don't know. What's up with Tulsi. She just if you don't want to be a Democrat, just be a Republican. You know, like it's like with this whole. I would have had more respect if she voted against impeachment than not voting. Like she was the not vote for the Democrats for impeachment. Why not just vote no? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just she just rubs me the wrong way. She rubs me, and now she's suing. Isn't she suing Hillary Clinton for defamation again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could call her a Russian asset.
Yeah.
It was a very good brief, actually. It was a really nice brief because she's trying to preempt a lot of the arguments about her being a public figure, about the malice and stuff like that. So it's really, really good. I'm thinking about like covering the brief in some sense of detail on my channel.
Oh wow,
I might
is that good, huh?
live stream it at some point because
It's
I thought
that
it was a
good.
really, really good brief. She did a really good job setting up the argument.
That one thing I did like about the Democrats for the impeachment thing the other day was that not was it today? I forget which day it was. It's fucking 3 days. But they were making the counter arguments for the Republicans. It was today. They were making the counter arguments for the Republicans' arguments. I thought that was a very good strategy. Instead, they took their time and said, "You're going to hear this. You're going to hear this. You're going to hear this," and then did rebuttals to the arguments. So now I'm kind of interested to see what the Trump team's going to come up with because they kind of like addressed all those key arguments that they had in their closing today. So it wasn't really like an opening argument.
You got to be thinking that stuff out. And I
Yeah.
really think it's a smart move to put it in your initial pleading because you know where this is going.
Yeah.
So why not just save us a whole bunch of time? I'm in favor of this. It's like, why not preempt some of these arguments? Like, what the argument's going to be. Why not just save us all a lot of time? It's like you're not telling them anything they couldn't already figure out anyway. It's like they know what the argument's going to be. They know what the response is going to be. So it's like you're not giving up the game. You're just like trying to like set some time. So and shows you like you're actually thinking, not being adult.
Now, why wouldn't I would ask this? In usually a criminal trial, after the prosecution put on the case, then the defendant automatically stands up and says, we want to, whatever it is, but it's a motion to dismiss the case. The prosecution hasn't made a private case, so we want to dismiss it. Since the Democrats have rested, why, and if McConnell wanted to get it done, why not just have the motion brought up now? The Democrats, are they able to, have they provided a prima facie case?
Yeah, I mean, he certainly could. My understanding was that there was enough Republican votes that they don't want to do that. They want a little bit more. So I would imagine there's going to be some kind of witnesses. I would imagine they're going to do the same thing they did with Clinton, which is to say, not in the Senate chamber. They're going to, pick a day and basically do depositions.
Okay.
But I think there is some appetite for that. I don't think there's an appetite for an immediate motion to dismiss. I figure we got about 2.5 weeks more of this. I figure there's a pretty decent chance this is still ongoing during the State of the Union address. Now, normally, I don't watch the State of the Union address, but this year I'm going to watch it because it's going to be epic.
Yeah,
also, as your future president, I'm not going to do the State of the Union address anymore. I will send Congress a letter. Because all I have to do is give them information on the State of the Union. I don't have to do it in person. And I don't like the performative aspect of it. It's too monarchical. It's too monarchical. It's like the Queen's speech for me. It's like it's too left over from the monarchy. So I will send them, a nice report on here's everything in the State of the Union and how everything is going. And maybe I'll give a speech in the Rose Garden or something, but I'm not doing it in Congress. So I'm changing that precedent too. So you can look forward to that in my administration.
No, but wasn't the precedent before for them to actually just give a report and then like they started?
Yeah, no, the speech thing is relatively new.
The speech.
Yeah, it's relatively new. I forget who started, Carter or Ford or something like that.
Let me give a speech.
It used to just be in writing. I'm going back. I'm doing this old school. It's just send them a note.
Yeah,
send them a 300-page note. But just here's what you do, guys. Let work for me in my administration. All I want you to do is every day. Basically write what we're doing every day and problems you see and whatever, and put it in a big binder. And then be like, here's your binder. Here's all the information that we collected in the last year. Here's what we've been doing. Here's what we've spotted. Here's what we're doing. Please help. Thanks. Bye.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I'm not doing the State of the Union address. I'll give some sort of thing in the Rose Garden, but I'm not doing that with a big chamber and everything. I just find it too.
I would do it.
Do something.
Supreme Court down there. I'd be giving shout outs like, yo, I want to give a shout out to my man or RBG 105 on the Supreme Court, girl. Come on, give me this pick, girl. It's time to hang them up.
Yeah.
Let me get this pick.
Well, Amy Cohen Barrett is your new Supreme Court nominee if RBG goes anywhere.
I know, and McConnell's going to fill that seat in the last year. He knows he's going to fill
But
that.
it's really interesting because this goes back to our earlier discussion about the boy who cries wolf problem. Because like the problem for our left leaning brethren is you guys have nothing left in rhetoric world when it comes to Supreme Court nominees. You guys went so ape crap over Gorsuch, who, by the way, that was like a total.
Gorsuch was a decent. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't pick either one of them, but I think Gorsuch. There was no reason to go after Gorsuch. He was a phenomenal pick.
But they did. They cried bloody murder.
They did. But Gorsuch was a fine man. I'm going to say, and I've even liked some of his stuff. So go ahead. Finish what you're saying about Gorsuch. But Gorsuch,
and they did the same thing for what's his name? I like beer guy.
Oh yeah, I'm not too happy with him. But
Kavanaugh. Yeah, they did the same thing for Kavanaugh. And like the problem is they've got nothing left because both these guys they said were like the next Hitler wannabe, and Amy Cohen Barrett is the anti-RBG. She is probably more conservative than Thomas, which I didn't think is possible. And if they switch out, they have no rhetoric left because they already used all their rhetoric. So what are they going to say?
Tom, one thing about Thomas though, one thing he hates. And I mean hates with a passion, Lemon v. Kurtzman. He hates Lemon v. Kurtzman with a passion.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know why he hates it so much, but he hates the lemon test for a religion. He hates it. But now Kavanaugh hates it too, so we're going to see.
Well, they are doing they're doing a couple big religious cases this year. There's one on religious school discrimination from forget one of the Midwestern states, but they had a law for school vouchers, but they denied school vouchers to any religious school. So the Supreme Court's hearing argument on that this term about whether or not that's constitutional or not. So maybe they'll abolish the lemon test yet. Who knows?
That it's conservatives. That's the other than what's it called, Roe v. Wade. That's the other case that they hate to death. Yeah, that's one. Well, listen, bro.
I mean, I think Garland would, to Dogbert's question, I think Garland would have been a fine justice. He wouldn't have been conservative enough for my taste, but he was a moderate pick. We could have done a lot worse, and it was a humongous gamble from the Republicans what they did with Garland, because if Hillary Clinton had won, she wasn't going to nominate Garland again.
No,
I mean, we all know this, right?
Yeah,
she wasn't going to nominate Garland again. She was going to appoint someone much further left than Garland. So it was a huge gamble from the Republicans to be like, okay, we're going to stall on Garland for 9 months when it looks like Clinton's going to win this thing and she's going to appoint someone much further left. But it's a gamble that paid off big time, though, because now Chief Justice Roberts is in the middle. He's the moderate.
He's the moderate.
Yeah, in the middle.
The moderate, yeah.
So that's the thing that happened.
And I'm a Chevron. Somebody wants to down with Chevron.
I hate Chevron.
Not gonna, it's hour's the one that's got.
I hate them. I hate the hour too. I hate hour. I hate Chevron. I hate Brand X. I want them all to die horribly.
Why? That you want the administrative state to die? That's all the administrative list.
Yes.
States.
Next, yeah. Well, I just don't want them to be. I mean, their opinion is interesting, but the idea that they get to like somehow have this. I learned from Schoolhouse Rock that courts interpret laws. So I didn't remember the part of Schoolhouse Rock that says the executive gets to interpret the law to the point where they're overruling the judiciary, and then they get to change their mind and overrule the judiciary again. That's Brand X. That's great case. Hey, our interpretation of the law is this. The court says we disagree. It says, and then the court says no, we have to agree because of Chevron. So now this is the law in our circuit. Now, normally to overturn a circuit decision, you need an en banc, but not with Brand X, because all the administration state says, oh, we changed our mind. Now it's this. And says, well, that must be the right interpretation then.
No, leave it from there.
I don't like this. I don't like this level of deference to the administrative state on interpreting the law or interpreting the regulations. You guys have a valuable opinion to offer. You guys administer and live in this world every day. So I have no problem like listening to your opinion as I'm interpreting this brief. But were it up to Judge Mueller, it's just one voice among many. I'm de novoing this thing, and I'm going to tell you what the law means, and you're going to like it. Kurt Mueller for Supreme Court Justice. Yeah, these are several cases I'm overruling. And I'm also going to overrule Whitney versus California.
What? Yeah. I gotta read that case.
Huh?
I gotta read that. You said Whitney versus California.
Oh no, not Whitney. Sorry. Shit.
Oh,
That's a First Amendment case.
I'm like Whitney. I want to read it. Man. I want to read it. I was like,
sorry, that's a First Amendment case. No, that was a horrible slip of the tongue. Wow, that was a bad one. Wickard v. Filburn. That was the one I was looking for.
Oh, so it's
hold on. My favorite opinions of all time too.
Wickard v. Filburn. That's the Let me see. Wickard v. Filburn. That's the wheat case. The wheat case.
Yeah, Wickard.
Oh yeah, the wheat case. That's a horrible decision, though. That's
no, I hate that. I hate Wickard.
Wickard is as bad as but that gives that super commerce power though. That gives the court amazing. Not the court, the government. That makes the commerce power almost unstoppable, right? Because Wickard he grew the wheat for his own use and his own land, and they said it's still.
I think it was Filburn, but yes, I think it was Filburn's farm.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's crazy. I still don't understand that case. Like what? Huh? And they still said it affected interstate.
Yeah, no, commerce. It's bullshit. No, This is Wickard. Interstate commerce includes intrastate non-commerce.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And this every time I hear this, my lawyer brain goes, I can't understand this
because
I cannot compute this. This makes no sense to me.
But the court did say because of its potential effect on interstate commerce, because if you did have this overage in one particular area, then interstate commerce could be affected because that's supply lines. It goes through this particular place. You don't buy it. You don't buy it.
No, Wickard makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Me growing tomatoes in my own garden does not comprise oppression of the tomato producers of the world.
No, for your own personal use.
No.
Also for your own personal use. He wasn't selling it. That was the killer. If he was selling it, then yes, but he kept it for his own use. They said no. Yeah, Wicked. Let me get out of here because I got something to do early tomorrow. It's been 2 hours. We've been at it for a long time. Boy.
Yeah, it's for 2 hours, but I've had a great time. Have you had a good time?
I've had a good time. I've had a really good time. I'm just like figuring out what I'm going to do because I got to wake up early tomorrow with the kids and we got to go somewhere because they, you got to do something on the weekend. It's just like my weekends are now more work than the weekdays. So I don't know. You know how it is. Oh,
well, I'm going to try to get my brakes fixed in my car as my working goal for tomorrow and continue my exercise plan. I've lost quite a bit of weight so far, so I'm doing pretty good on things so far. So I'm going to try to keep it up.
Oh, what do you do?
At the moment, I'm doing strength training 4 days a week and cardio 3 days a week. So tomorrow's a cardio day.
It's funny. I was benching. I can still bench almost 300 pounds. I got the video on my channel with me doing 225, but now it's funny. I was at the gym the other day, and I'm like, all right, let me get back into it again. It's like any little weight I pick up, now my whole body's in pain. I don't know. It's just like the older you get to, any little thing I touch, pain for the next day. So I don't know. Maybe I got to get more protein or something.
Well, we should offer to bribe the chat at this point, or get them to bribe us, like because they say no, don't leave. Maybe for like every $5 a super chat you give us, we'll stay on another minute of conversation or something.
All
we could do quid pro quo that way. I will exchange my time for money. What do you think a good rate is, Nate?
I don't know, for $5. Yeah. What happened to you guys? They haven't been giving up any super chats, huh?
They don't love me like they love you, Nate. They don't give me as many super chats as they give you.
Yeah, the other day.
And you got a lot more live followers than me. I got 26 followers, and you get usually quite a bit more than that. So you're doing better on the live followers.
Yeah, but that's because I handle some real like crazy topics. My topics are like insane. You're reading Supreme Court cases. I'm talking about there's these false allegations and people in Texas not doing good things. So,
well, I will simply say that if you have not already followed Nate Brody, you should follow his channel. He's a fellow YouTube lawyer. He is working in New York City. I am going to find his link so that I can give you one for his channel, and you should go follow him and subscribe. He is funny and he keeps me honest.
How do I keep you honest? What are you talking about? I have this. I just spat out random facts out of my brain.
Yeah, but I mean, that you make me think. I like anyone who makes me think. I like anyone who has an opinion, who can express it intelligently, and can get me to think about ideas and challenge me on ideas and make sure that I'm not being an idiot.
Ah, well, and hey, I appreciate you think that I'm not a PA gun laws for NYC. Dogbert, $2. Thank you, Dogbert. I don't know how the laws in PA are, but it is what it is.
Yeah. The link is in the description. I'm putting it on screen as well. That is the link to Nate Brody's channel. He has 2.64 thousand subscribers, and you could be one of them. And if you watch him, you will be happy, and all your questions will be answered. Your life will be improved massively.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you guys, and thank you for having me. This was
Hey,
fun.
no problem.
This was like such a mellow night too. I gotta go get like some wine or something. And
Yeah, no, we definitely need to do this again. I've no objection to like even doing this on a somewhat like scheduled regular basis rather than on the fly impromptu, which is also fine for me.
but
But
usually
you have
it's
to let me
pretty,
know more about your schedule.
like the last on the fly one we did, we got Viva in, we got
Yeah.
it's like all of a sudden it was like the Lawyers Guild was in there. I was like, wow, this is great. This is great.
All right, guys, I'm going to end the broadcast for now. I love you all, and until later, peace.
The Wicked is bullshit. I like that.